Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So first of all, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of you because we just hit 700 subs and that's a huge accomplishment for us. Recent times, mostly it's been Nomadium 2 content, but I figured I'd make another nation review episode because it's been so long since I made the last one. So enjoy. So this review is about the French and the topics we are gonna discuss are on the screen. We're gonna start out by discussing their unique units. The French unique unit is heavy cavalry. Compared to generic heavy cavalry, they have +1 attack, +1 HP, and +1 movement speed. Interestingly enough, the H2 and H5 French heavy cavalry have a faster attack rate than the normal ones, but the H3 and H4 versions do not. The recharge rate for H2 French heavy cavalry is -2 compared to the standard cataphract. And for the H5 French heavy cavalry, they have -3 recharge rate compared to the normal heavy cavalry. I'm not sure what the reason is for the H3 and H4 French heavy cavalry to not have faster attack rate, but I guess it makes sense from a balance perspective because in H4 the monarchy already makes them super strong. So just because heavy cavalry is already an essential part of any army, the French are even better in this regard. Couple this with the fact that French armies heal with a supply wagon, this makes the French army one of the most deadly in the game. Especially considering how there's no ranged heavy infantry before H5, so we can definitely see why the French heavy cavalry is a fan favorite for money. Now let's move on to their nation powers in standard. Their first nation power is that they start with a free lumber mill, and lumber mill upgrades are researched automatically and for free as soon as they are able. I consider this their best eco bonus for standard. First of all, each of your woodcutters will gather +2 wood in your first city, and upon researching Science 3, you get the first lumber mill upgrade instantly for free. This helps booming to gunpowder a lot, because maxing out 200 eco will be done easily with just 12 woodcutters or 8 for 150 eco. Altogether, you save 100 resources on the first lumber mill, 300 resources on the first research, and 500 on the second upgrade that comes with Science 4. And later, with Science 6, you save a whopping 900 resources. Keep in mind that the architecture upgrades are not affected by this, so you do not get them for free. Their second nation power kind of complements the first one. It says all woodcutter camps have +1 additional slot for citizens. This bonus is really handy if you have a shortage of wood on the map. Even with the worst possible wood, French can still get by, because even a 3-slot camp becomes 4, and if it is built in the first city, the gather rate will become +48, which is normally only +30 with other nations. The +1 bonus also increases the completion bonus by +5, because when you build a woodcutter's camp, the completion bonus is based on how many villagers can work there. Moving on now to their third nation power, which is another eco bonus for timber, which is commerce limit increased by +10%. This is quite nice to have, especially in the early game, because without commerce 2 and the senator, you will have 110 wood income instead of just 100. Which means you will have more options in early classical age, since wood is required for pretty much everything. This extra income makes it easier to put down a barracks faster, or just making extra farms, universities, or whatever you want. The fourth nation bonus is that they receive a free general each time they complete a new castle. This is pretty much a one-time bonus because it's quite rare to build more than one castle under normal circumstances. I consider it more of a convenience bonus because the extra general is not a must-have for your army, but it helps to be able to use forced march or ambush more often, and you won't lose all the armor bonus in case your patriot gets sniped. The fifth and last nation power is that supply wagons heal your troops. Also, you receive a free supply wagon each time you build a siege factory or factory. Now, this is where things get interesting. This bonus is considered probably the strongest of the French powers, because normally units only heal in your own territory or in garrisons. But with this, the French can heal their units in enemy territory as well, and no other nation can do this without Versailles or the CEO Patriot, which is really late in the game, being available only in H6. Healing in enemy territory means that hit and run tactics with archers won't work against you. Whenever your sieges get damaged, the wagon will heal them. Whenever the battle is over, your remaining troops will heal. This bonus is the reason why French are unstoppable in many cases, once they gain the upper hand, simply because the only way to defeat them is to kill the entire army, which is usually impossible if you are on the back foot. Going despotism with French is a popular choice because the totalitarian patriots act like supply wagons, and while supply wagons are often easy to hunt down, the despot is a lot faster and tougher. So if you didn't think French was already a strong offensive nation, they get the siege bonus as well, meaning that their siege is created 15% cheaper and 25% faster. Also, they move 20% faster. Now, the Turks are still the kings of siege, but it's really cost effective to have cheaper siege in the long run. Not to mention that not only the sieges cost less, but their upgrades are also cheaper by 15%, so upgrading to trebuchets or bombards isn't quite so painful. Faster production means less time for the opponent to prepare their defenses as well. Moving on to the next topic, their economy in standard. They are not considered a great nation for booming, but this is probably due to their incredible offensive abilities. Going for a boom approach with French can be considered a waste by most players, but I do think they have a decent boom and you cannot go for a rush in every game. The many small bonuses do add up in the long run, especially the free lumber mill upgrades help a lot. Having extra wood enables to build more farms or markets, so it indirectly gives a boost to those resources as well. Their big disadvantage is the lack of food bonuses in the early game, making them among the slowest in the ancient age, and they do not get any direct wealth bonuses either. Since they are a bit slow on the start and get outclassed by a lot of nations in the long run, I'd say it's a 5 out of 10. Next, about their rushing abilities. So the French really shine in this category, especially in the medieval age rush. Because of their rather slow start, the classical age rush is not as fast as some other nations, but the cheap sieges and healing heavy infantry and heavy cavalry are very hard to counter. This becomes even harder to counter in medieval age because the battles are more drawn out, so the healing ability helps even more, and the French army becomes a slow death ball. Getting 3 trebuchets is no problem for them, and the crossbows combined with French heavy cavalry are very deadly. For their classical age rush I'd give an 8 and their medieval age rush a 10, so overall it's a 9 out of 10 for rush. Moving on to their raiding. They are one of the best nations to do army raids with, or just spamming heavy cavalry coupled with the despot, because the healing makes it very difficult to kill them. The heavy cavalry is also stronger and faster than the generic one. In classical age they need a bit of time to get raids going, but after that the opponent better have a strong army, otherwise he could be in deep trouble. Because like I mentioned, the French army needs to be destroyed completely to beat them. Otherwise the healing effect will help them too much. So for me, the rating is 7 out of 10. Moving on to their defense. It becomes problematic if the French have to defend, because they do not receive any direct benefits in that regard. The extra wood can help with building multiple barracks and stables, so the defensive army will be assembled faster. Also, if they have both a supply wagon and a senator, the healing will be twice as fast. So they do have some advantages when it comes to defending in a battle, but nothing really helps them against early raids, especially since they are one of the slower nations. So overall their defense is not really their strong suit. It's a 4 out of 10 for me. And finally, the last topic for standard is scouting. The French do not get any direct or indirect scouting bonuses, so it's 1 out of 5. And now let's move on to the nation bonuses in Nomad. They retain most of their bonuses from standard except for the free lumber mill, so overall their strengths and weaknesses are really similar to standard. They have a slow start, a few economy bonuses to help with wood, and really strong offensive abilities once their eco is set up. So the first topic in Nomad is economy. I mentioned that in standard their strongest bonus is the free lumber mill upgrades. Unfortunately in Nomad this is not as useful as before, because the most crucial time for economy is in the first 2 or 3 ages. So other than the +1 woodcutter camp slot and +10% timber economy cap, they do not have any bonuses for these ages, and they are gonna lag behind the better booming nations most of the time, so I would say it's a 3 out of 10 for economy. Moving on to the rushing in Nomad. So I pretty much could just copy what I wrote for the standard part, because they have the same strengths and weaknesses in this regard. They are a bit slow to get starting, but once they do, they are very hard to stop, both in classical and in medieval age. So pretty much the only weak point I can find is their early speed in classical age. Other than that, it's a 9 out of 10 for rushing. The next topic is raiding in Nomad. The wood bonus allows making a barracks earlier than some other nations, so the French can do an ancient raid if they want to, but it's not something they particularly excel at. However, in classical age and onwards, they do have their stronger heavy cavalry. But I still wouldn't say they are one of the best raiding nations. I think it's a 4 out of 10 for raiding. Now, about their defensive abilities in Nomad. Once again, the wood bonus can help them a bit, because you can build an additional tower temple if it's needed, and the senator with the supply wagon will provide double healing, which definitely helps in close battles. Still, I wouldn't want to be defending with French because their start is slow. and they much rather shine when they are attacking instead of defending. So for defense, it's a 5 out of 10. And about their scouting, this is pretty much the same as in standard, no bonuses indirect or directly. So it's 1 out of 5. And lastly, the team bonuses for French. Nothing really comes to mind when it comes to helping your allies with French. However, there are some small bonuses that indirectly can help them. For instance, French can have a lot of surplus wood, and on African watering hole they can make some extra heavy ships, and this contributes to more water control. Also, their siege are cheaper and faster to make, so your ally won't have to create as much siege on average. So they synergize really well with aggressive nations overall, but their slow start can make both the French player and their ally quite vulnerable. Not to forget, they don't really have great defensive bonuses either, so I'd say it's 2 out of 5 for teamwork. So that's all I have to say about the French, a nation known for their great offensive capabilities with some decent economic bonuses, but being vulnerable against faster aggressive nations. Let me know in the comments what you think of this review, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you all for watching.